are terrible. Well, the roads are ice and snow covered. We've got anywhere from 18 to 24 inches of snow. People just need to stay home. You know, we've got an emergency here.
Hello, I'm Mark Pompilio.
And I'm Darcel Grimes. You're about to see the best of News 13's coverage of the blizzard of '93. We made this video for you to keep in your home library.
And what a story it will be to tell future generations. The blizzard has been called everything from the storm of the century to a hurricane with snow. When people in western North Carolina woke up on the morning of Saturday, March 13th, they found about a foot of snow on the ground, and many folks were without power. And to make matters worse, the storm's snowfall was accompanied by low temperatures and fierce winds.
News 13 had predicted the storm and was ready for action. Early Saturday morning, we were on the air every hour on the hour, and we broadcast a special noon newscast on both Saturday and Sunday. Brenda Birch was in the anchor chair.
Our special weather coverage continues this morning, and the major snowstorm, as you might know now, has brought at least 12 to 14 inches in western North Carolina, with as much as 20 inches in parts of Swain County. Now, the upstate is reporting 3 to 6 inches of snow overnight, and as you might suspect, more snow is on tap today. We're expecting 4 to 6 more inches. Now, this is the scene right now near the 240 interchange at Charlotte Street in Asheville. Let's go now to Gary Stevenson with the latest. Gary, quite the winter storm system working up out there.
Brenda, this will be one to remember and probably go down in the record books. Let me inform you on the watches, warnings, and advisories. Right now, a blizzard warning is in effect for the mountains of western North Carolina.
All right, thank you, Gary. Let's go live now to Linda Dawson. She's out somewhere in this mess. Linda, what's the situation? Are you able to get around out there at all this morning?
Brenda, without four-wheel drive, it is virtually impossible to get around. The picture we showed you just a few minutes ago showed you a car with front-wheel drive that was not able to get around. The snowplows are out. Here's one about to pass us here on Charlotte Street. Excuse me, but they are having a hard time keeping up with this, and they are just trying at the moment to keep the primary roads clear. That's true for state crews, that's true for local crews. We have an unofficial measurement here we're going to do for you right here on Charlotte Street. We're going to stick this ruler in and see what we've got. Definitely unofficial, just about 11 inches here, and it is still falling. We have a little bit of road information for you. As we told you, I-40 is impassable in places. It is especially bad at the Haywood and Buncombe County line, and the Highway Patrol says that's where they're concentrating most of their efforts right now. They have some trucks that are having problems getting through there, some tractor trailers, so they say please stay off the road.
This is a News 13 weather bulletin. And this is what you're waking up to this morning. A monstrous winter storm has dumped anywhere from 12 to 20 inches of snow in parts of western North Carolina. The upstate now reports up to 6 inches of snow, and we are expecting at least another 4 to 6 inches today. Good morning to you. I'm Brenda Birch. And first off this morning, we want to ask you to stay off the roads. Most are treacherous. Many people that are out are getting stranded this morning. That's becoming a major problem now for crews that are trying to clear the roads. Stranded motorists are leaving their cars in the middle of the road, making travel much more difficult for road crews that are out working at this hour.
Things are terrible. Well, roads are ice and snow covered. We've got anywhere from 18 to 24 inches of snow, and all we're doing now is on the 4-lane roads just keeping the snow pushed off as best we can. The secondary roads, there are trees and that are down, blocking the roads. We got crews out trying to clean that up, but you just can't go anywhere.
Okay, and the latest information is I-26 westbound is closed in Polk County. Right now we've got Kevin Butler with CP&L on the phone line standing by. Mr. Butler, first of all, how many customers are without power in the area right now?
Well, they're only estimates, but approximately 20,000 customers in the area that we serve in the western part of the state, which would include Haywood County, Buncombe County, Skyland, Fletcher area, and sections of Mitchell County.
Okay, the big question then this morning is how long do you imagine it will take to restore power to those folks?
We have an odd situation in North Asheville. We have a substation transformer in one of our major substations down on Riverside Drive. that has failed, and we're in the process of repairing that at this time, but we expect that repair to take at least 4 to 5 hours. The biggest problem right now that we're having is getting to these troubled areas once they're identified. Just the snow depth itself, stranded cars, trees across the road, just getting around is just almost impossible.
Certainly, I'm sure.
This is a special edition of News 13 at noon, continuing winter storm coverage.
As we said, a significant snowfall has hit western North Carolina. Also, a mixture of snow, sleet, and rain has fallen on the upstate. Thousands of people are without power right now. Let's begin our coverage by starting out with Gary Stevenson. He's tracking this storm. Gary, it's absolutely incredible out there. What more can we expect this afternoon?
Brenda, I think the worst thing we will have to deal with during the afternoon hours is the increasing wind speed. I just took a look at the latest report from the Asheville airport. Sustained winds of 47 miles per hour, gusting. That's gusting up to 56 miles per hour, making a wind chill factor of -16. That's how it feels on the exposed skin.
Thank you, Gary. Let's go outside now just to find out about some of the problems, the conditions we've been telling you about, all by this major snowfall. News 13's Rick Call joins us live now just north of downtown Asheville. Rick, it's really coming down out there. Certainly a blizzard going on, wouldn't you say?
Well, there's not only the snow that's coming down, but there's some high winds that are mixed with it, creating visibility problems. At times you can barely see right in front of you. Of course, if you do not absolutely have to get out, then stay home. That is certainly the advice of every emergency official that we've been talking with all day. This snowstorm has basically crippled the city of Asheville. There are still emergency crews out. There are still plows out. CP&L crews are also out trying to restore power, but everyone else should stay home if at all possible. Now we're going to show you some pictures that we've been shooting all morning that will show you just how big of a mess it is out here. Driving around Asheville is practically impossible today. You find abandoned cars all over the place, stuck in snowbanks.
Virtually every major road in the city of Asheville is impassable at this point, with the exception of a four-wheel drive vehicle. If you have a four-wheel drive vehicle, you can get out. However, at this point, we're recommending that no one go out whatsoever.
I see a lot of cars that are off at the side. There are very few people going through. Up in Montfort, it looked like an independent party was plowing the street. Didn't look like anyone official.
Emergency crews are out and responding to calls. On Otari Road, a man collapsed in the street.
I looked out my kitchen window. He was laying in the street, jerking. It's like he had been hit, but there's nothing around here. As you can see, that it's fell on two hit him. So I called 911.
How quickly did they get here?
I was on top of him in about a minute. It wasn't 5 minutes till they were here.
Firefighters move the man inside until an ambulance arrives. A plow leads the way so the ambulance can get through all the snow. In some places, there's more than deep snow in the way. This morning in North Asheville, a tree fell across Kimberly Avenue. Numerous limbs have fallen on Lorraine Avenue, making it impassable to even four-wheel drive trucks.
The street's totally blocked. These big pines just couldn't handle the weight of the snow on them, and they've been dropping their branches all over the place. It looks like a tornado went through here.
And the way the wind is blowing right now, it almost feels as if there is a tornado blowing right through here. It is certainly fair to say that this is a blizzard condition. The police officer we spoke with says a lot of cars have been stalling, or not necessarily stalling, but getting stuck at intersections, and that's causing problems for the plows and the emergency crews because it makes it even more difficult for them to get through. So again, if you don't absolutely have to come out, then certainly stay home. One other note, the man that we showed you that was being treated by firefighters was indeed taken to the hospital, and we're told that he is now in stable condition in the emergency room. Brenda?
All right, certainly good to hear there. Rick, also the officer mentioned that you might be able to get around in four-wheel drives out there this morning, but with some of the other conditions we're dealing with other than the snow, I mean, when you talk about the trees, the limbs, and stranded motorists or stalled cars, kind of a false sense of security even in something like that, isn't it?
Absolutely a false sense of security. It was okay perhaps this morning, maybe if you had a pickup truck, a four-wheel drive, you could get through, but now you're not just dealing with the deep snow that's on the streets. As you can see the snow blowing by the camera here, you're dealing with these winds, and in a moment, all of a sudden you might not be able to see in front of you, and you could be hitting something, running somebody down, who knows what.
Linda Dawson and photographer David Atkins have been out all morning on the roads, and quite simply, that's even an understatement. Linda joins us live now. Linda, describe what it's like as you're out there driving around this morning.
Brenda, this is some of the worst weather I've ever seen. Certainly the worst weather Asheville has seen, this Western North Carolina has seen probably in the last 5 to 10 years. We are seeing whiteouts where you go, and we're going to show you some of the conditions. It is just amazing. This is an interstate road, and we're in the high-speed lane. The driving ranges from a slow pace to nearly a standstill because of conditions. Now, it's not just snow, it's wind and snow whipping together to form near whiteout conditions on I-40, I-240, and I-26. It's not that road crews aren't working. At the state maintenance garage, they're filling up to go out again, but they just can't get ahead of this vicious storm.
People just need to stay home. You know, we've got an emergency here.
Things are aggravated by people trying to drive and then abandoning cars or getting stuck. Some people are still going out.
There's nobody else riding around, so why not?
That is not a good idea. The people we have been seeing going by us, even if they're in four-wheel drive vehicles, they still look like they're just riding around. It's not a smart thing to do, because as conditions are changing and the whiteouts start, you may be fine, but you may end up in a snowbank, and if you don't have the proper supplies with you, you could be stuck in a snowbank. And we're talking life-threatening conditions here. And people who have decided to come out and take a walk are walking along these roads, and when the whiteouts start, you can't tell if somebody's going to swerve into you or not. The best advice, really, truly, trust us, stay home today, stay put. Brenda?
All right, good advice. Once again, we want to check outside to see what's going on, what it looks like. News 13's Rick Gaul is just north of downtown Asheville. We're going to check back in with him. Rick, you've been out there all morning. All morning we've been telling people not to drive. Are people paying attention? Are you seeing much traffic on the roads at all?
Given the fact that almost every business is closed in Asheville, I am very surprised to see as many people out as I have, people driving, people walking. Obviously, people just don't see this as a dangerous situation, or as dangerous as it really is. And as the winds pick up and the snow and the wind combine to create a blizzard condition, it is very, very difficult to see whether you're driving or walking. A special caution to people out walking. I've seen a lot of them walking in the streets where the snow has been packed by traffic. Especially now with the wind picking up, visibility so low, a driver might not be able to see you, and while you're out just walking to see the snow, you might end up being in an accident. You might end up being hit. So that's a special concern. Now, this morning we talked with some people, and we'd like to show you some of those interviews, people who are out and about in this snowstorm. Even though police have advised everyone to stay home, some people venture out in Asheville. Many of those with four-wheel drive vehicles get through, but most cars end up stuck and abandoned. This one will be tough to get started, period. Right now, it's holding up a carport that collapsed under heavy snow. In the streets, you find plenty of people walking, some out to see the snow, others trying to get somewhere.
Well, Kimberly's, the pine trees have dropped limbs all over the road, and people can't get up here. Had a ride to come get me, but he couldn't get through. So I'm trying to get down to Charlotte Street.
Why are you even out today?
I work at the hospital mission.
So you've got to get there today?
Yeah.
This newspaper carrier does not plan to let the snow stop him. He's running several hours behind, but so far he's doing okay.
The interstate, and there was a double trailer jackknifed there and had to drive around it in the grass. Basically just about 5 miles an hour. If you go real slow and you got four-wheel drive, you can get where you need to go if there's not a car stuck in the road. So
many people have wisely decided just to stay home.
We expected it, and I didn't really have any plans today. It'll probably mess up churches tomorrow, though. I assume it won't melt before tomorrow.
You don't have any power at this point?
Oh, no. It's been out since 6 a.m. or thereabouts.
Rick, we've talked about the snowfall being so dangerous. I think the big danger this afternoon has to be the wind chill. We're dealing with minus 17 here in the Asheville area. You're out there without anything on your face. What does the exposure feel like to you?
Well, I tell you what, as soon as I'm done talking with you, I'm going to head right back to the car. I would not advise anyone to stay out for any lengthy period of time. If you're out going...
This is News 13 at 6, the Weekend Report, with the latest local news, weather, and sports.
This is where it is right now. The center of the storm is right along the North Carolina-Virginia coast. You can see how this massive area of cloudiness wraps around that, and of course that's also strong winds that pull down cold air behind it. This storm has produced record low barometric pressure. It has produced record high winds along the Gulf and the Atlantic coast. It is going to produce record snow amounts from Alabama and Mississippi right up through the Carolinas and West Virginia. It has produced tornadoes in Florida, devastation and fatalities. It has produced heavy damage along the South Carolina, North Carolina coastal areas, where today at Myrtle Beach and Surfside, heavy damage was done there at the astronomical high tide around midday today. So this is going to be one we are not going to forget. Out for tonight.
The blizzard hurt western North Carolina the most, but it also pounded much of the upstate as well.
The pictures tell the story in this report by John Lyles.
Duke Power workers have been busy battling Mother Nature while trying to repair down lines. About 3,000 people in the Anderson area are still without power. Although the snow has stopped falling in several areas around the upstate, Duke Power officials say the situation could become a lot worse. They say once the wind picks up, more trees like this one will start to fall.
We're experiencing winds 25 to 40 miles per hour with gusts in some areas of 64 miles per hour. And with the snow accumulated on the trees and those heavy winds and the ground being soft, we anticipate a lot of trouble tonight.
To prepare for a power outage, you should try and get a backup heat source and flashlights. Duke Power asks that you have patience when calling to report a broken line. Already, their phone lines are jammed with people calling to report loss of power. John Lyles, News 13, Anderson.
Now that's how some of our coverage looked on Saturday. By Sunday, the severity of the storm became clearer.
The number of homes without power was much larger than originally believed, more than 100,000.
Responding in many different ways. Some people are doing practically anything they can to keep warm. With the temperatures that Bob talked about plummeting tonight, tonight will be a true test of courage and resourcefulness for many people. Perhaps decisions will hinge on survival. It is going to be that cold. Some people have been without power for more than 40 hours. Already their homes are cold. While there have been many emergency shelters set up throughout western North Carolina, many people have had problems getting to them because of the snow and the road conditions. The power companies insist they are aware of the dangers. They are aware of this crisis and say they are doing all they can.
Who's going down in this area?
Where's that? CP&L workers meet on Charlotte Street in Asheville to figure out where they'll go next. They divide up a stack of service calls that need attention. Since the storm broke, they've almost worked around the clock.
We come out on Friday night about 11 o'clock. They called us on it, and we started then. We worked last night till about 10:30 before we got back to a motel over on Tunnel Road. We stayed over there till back out at 6 this morning.
CP&L workers say they're doing the best they can. They've continuously battled deep snow, but that's not all.
The big problem we're having is we can't get anywhere. There's traffic in the road. There's people out wanting to see how pretty the snow is and wanting to see how far their four-wheel drives will go, and it's really giving us a problem getting to our troubles.
Some people in North Asheville had their power restored today.
I'm pleased. I don't see how they could have done anything else. This was I guess the snowstorm of the century, wasn't it? So what could they do? They've been out there, I know, working very hard.
But many people have complained about how long they've been without power. These two friends have abandoned their apartment.
I've experienced a blackout. We don't have any heat, any hot water. We can't cook, and our food's going bad.
So what are you doing now?
Well, we got us something, and we're gonna go over his sister's house.
I guess they have heat there?
Yeah.
How cold did it get?
It got real cold last night. We almost froze.
Some people have headed to emergency shelters, like this one at the Red Cross in Asheville.
We toughed it out as long as we could, but I have asthma and another lung condition, and it was becoming harder and harder for me to breathe, and I needed somewhere warm to stay. And we were lucky and found a wonderful man from Alexander. We flagged him down in his truck, and he brought us over here, and so now we're warm.
A lot of stories of people helping people they don't even know, of neighbors helping neighbors. We're going to need to see a lot more of that in the next few days, because clearly this is a dangerous situation, even though ironically the sun is shining over my shoulder. Tammy?
Now, Rick, you mentioned that power crews say sightseers are getting in the way of workers. Are emergency crews running into the same problem?
A short time ago, I spoke with Asheville Police Chief Gerald Beavers, and he tells me one of the biggest problems that they ran into today is people getting in the way, people walking in the streets, people out in their four-wheel drive vehicles or cars and getting stuck. The chief's advice is stay home, stay out of the way so they can make those very, very important emergency runs and get there in a timely fashion.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Nice job. Well, a group of stranded teenagers are thankful to be home safe and sound tonight. They had to be airlifted by a National Guard helicopter from a camp in the outlying areas of northern Greenville County. News 13's Deborah Potter tells us the winter storm took the group by surprise.
The middle and high school students arrived at Camp Greenville Friday afternoon. Saturday morning, the electricity went off, then the water, then the phones. Camp counselors used a generator and kerosene heaters to keep the kids warm.
Everyone handled it really well. The kids were wonderful. They played games well together. The staff was very resourceful.
It's kind of scary. I mean, it wasn't that bad because we got food and everything, but we didn't have no electricity, and we had to all sleep together in one cabin.
Even though the weather conditions are improving as the day goes on, National Guard members have to get these kids out as soon as possible. That's because the wind is supposed to pick up throughout the day, and it could become dangerous to fly the choppers in heavy wind. The helicopters landed on a soccer field, bringing the students out in groups.
They seemed very happy when they came off the aircraft. Both the adults and the children seemed relieved to be here. They sure did.
And relieved to be on the way home to Manning, South Carolina, where there's much less snow. Deborah Potter, News 13, Greenville.
Now we've reached the point of day 3 of the storm, Monday, March 15th. What you're about to see is our 6 o'clock news that evening. We expanded it to an hour.
And it wasn't easy to get that newscast on the air. Many of people here at News 13 went to extraordinary efforts to make it to the station. The high snowdrift still made driving dangerous, and it was impossible for many people to get out of their house. So by day 3, although we had some reinforcements in our building, much of the same staff was working yet another long day. But as many of our viewers have told us, that 6 o'clock newscast on Monday the 15th was one of our best ever.
This is News 13 at 6 with the latest local news, weather, and sports.
North Carolina National Guard helicopters hit the air in search this morning of people trapped by the snowstorm.
They focused their efforts on the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, where many campers were caught off guard. News 13's Rick Gall reports live from the scene. Rick, can you tell us about the rescue effort?
About 10 helicopters were flying rescue missions today, most of them from the National Guard. Today was a very productive day in terms of rescue operations. More than 30 people have been brought out. That number may be low in the sense that we have not heard from all of the helicopters in terms of the total number of people that they've been able to bring out. More than 30, maybe even more. Now, one of those helicopters landed here at the airport earlier today. A National Guard chopper lands at the Asheville Regional Airport for refueling. On board, there are 4 people that were airlifted out of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. 3 of them, including 2 teenagers, were on a wilderness expedition from a school near Detroit.
No, I've never seen snow that deep in my life. We, Saturday morning, we hiked through at least 2 feet of snow for 6 miles.
Were you ever afraid you might not get out alive?
The point crossed my mind a few times, but as long as we kept going, and a couple people in the group were having problems, but you know, we kind of took care of that.
We were backpacking for the last 6 days or so, myself and my students, and just made our way to the Cataloochee Valley and found a cabin there and stayed there for a while. I'd like to thank the North Carolina National Guard for getting us out today.
More than 100 students and staff from Michigan were on the expedition. You've got a lot of fellow students out there. Worried about them?
Yeah, I am. I am pretty worried, but what eases my mind is a lot of them are supposed to be resupplied on Thursday.
It's basically a risk sort of situation where we go out there to challenge the students. This is obviously more of a challenge than we might have expected. Without any information as what was going on with the other crews, and we still haven't accounted for all of them yet, but I know that all of our leaders are very well prepared, and I never really was concerned about the safety of the people out there.
We have approximately 4 helicopters right now working various areas of the park. We've been picking people up all day long and transporting them out. People are stranded. We have one that was in serious condition, transported with frostbite. So it's serious, and we don't know yet how many people are still out there unaccountable for and maybe running out of food.
This helicopter heads toward Cherokee, where the hikers will meet up with other members of the group who so far have made it out of the park. At last word, about 30 of the hikers from Michigan are still out in the park, although I'm told by one emergency official that their whereabouts is known. It is important to point out that there are other hikers still out in the park, not necessarily just those from Michigan. Park rangers are trying to determine just who is out there and where they are. I'm told it may be another day or two before everyone is brought out. One park ranger told me that this is a very busy time of year. Even though it is March in the park, a lot of students come down, and it also, of course, is one of the most hazardous. Mark, Tammy?
Rick, this is so reminiscent of the missing skiers we reported on in Aspen just a couple of weeks ago. In that situation, they knew where to look and they knew how many were gone. In this situation, it must be difficult for them to know where to focus their search and if they can get to all these people safely. There must be a lot of concern.
Well, there is not necessarily confusion, but certainly a lot of concern in the sense that even with the hikers, there's a group where you'd think we'd know exactly how many are out there, but one emergency official said he keeps hearing all different sorts of numbers. So they're trying to, of course, pinpoint just how many people are out there from that one particular group. It's more than 100, but they're also trying to find out how many other hikers are out there.
And there are many.
Yes. Thanks, Rick. And later in our newscast, we'll talk with News 13's Cheryl Barber, who has just returned from the rescue of another group of students from Tennessee who were stranded in the park. There are others who have chilling tales of the blizzard, those who were caught in its grip in the great outdoors.
News 13's Maggie Lauderer visited two men in the hospital who were caught in the storm in the Shining Rock Wilderness area in Haywood County. She joins us live now in our Asheville newsroom. Maggie, did the man know the storm was coming?
Well, Tammy and Mark, when Jerry Gibson and Joe Meyer left Alabama on Thursday morning early, they weren't worried about it because they just heard that it was going to snow and they were experienced campers. They're two newspaper men from down there. Anyhow, things went very well until they crawled out of their tent on Saturday morning. They were knee-deep in snow. The wind was blowing. They couldn't see where they were going. They realized they had no sense of direction because the wind up there reportedly was 90, 100 miles an hour. So they decided the best thing to do was to pop their tent, get back in the tent, and just stay there. They stayed there for 24 hours, and during the night, the snow was covering them up. They were literally being buried alive, and so they get out and crawl to clear so that they could breathe. And they admit that during the night they wondered if they were going to make it.
I don't believe I've ever seriously at any time thought about the possibility of dying as I did that night. We knew we were in trouble, but we also knew there was nothing we could do about it, so just had to stay there and hope for the best.
So the next morning, when the wind had subsided some, they got out of their tent, but they realized the drifts were over their heads in some points, and the only way to get anywhere was just to crawl on their hands and knees. It took them 9 hours to go 2.5 miles. Now, what saved these men's lives is they got back to their car, which was stranded 20 miles from the closest house, but they had a cellular phone. So he called his wife, and he said, just call somebody. So they called the rescue operations, and on Monday morning, this morning, they heard the sweet sound of a helicopter.
I guess that's the most beautiful sight I've ever seen. That was my first helicopter ride, and I didn't get to see anything. They had me laid down, strapped in, so. But it was also the best ride I've ever had. I'm just happy to be here.
It'll be 72 hours before the doctors will know just how extensive the frostbite is in their fingers and their toes. But as Jerry told me, he's just happy to be alive. Mark, Tammy.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. I mean, what an amazing story, Maggie. And there are many more of those stories out there that hopefully we can get to you. Good stories.
And I hope they're all happy endings.
Oh, you're right. Thanks so much, Maggie.
Let's hope for that.
Yeah.
Well, Governor Jim Hunt came to Western North Carolina today, flying in a National Guard helicopter. He surveyed some of the areas hit by the snowstorm. This afternoon, the chopper landed at the Asheville Regional Airport, where the governor met with emergency officials to get an update. Hunt insists the state's moving as quickly as it can to bring relief to the people of Western North Carolina stranded by the blizzard.
Today I declared a state of disaster for these counties in North Carolina. We appropriated $900,000, almost $1 million, to pay for cleanup and vehicles to get folks out. We think that will be matched 4-1 by the federal government, and I have written the president asking him to declare these counties as disaster counties in North Carolina so we can get federal help.
And just moments ago, we learned from Congressman Charles Taylor that Governor Hunt's request has been signed by FEMA, the federal agency in charge of disaster relief. He says the president is expected to sign the request any minute. Hunt says equipment is being brought from across the state to deal with the crisis. Thad Bryson with the North Carolina Emergency Management Division briefed the governor on the status of the 17 western North Carolina counties. He says there are still about 60 to 70,000 people isolated, about half as many as yesterday. He says the power companies tell him there are about 200,000 people still without power, and it could be 2 or 3 more days before power is back on.
Well, heavy snow caused a roof collapse at Asheville's Innsbrook Mall this afternoon. Part of the roof and a wall in the center area of the mall caved in. Emergency crews evacuated people inside safely and no one was hurt, but gas and power lines were cut. Crews were able to shut off the gas and there was no fire. Well, the sooner all this snow melts, the sooner things will get back to normal for us. Let's go down to Ken Bostic for a quick weather update. Ken?
Well, you know, this storm took over most of the weekend, and after it ended and moved out of the way Sunday, we didn't really think that what we would see was record low temperatures to follow it, but we did last night, and I mean these are some of the coldest temperatures ever recorded in the month of March. We got down to 2 in Asheville, brand new record. Hendersonville was 2, Greenville was 16, Spartanburg 11, Anderson 14. Some of the smaller towns last night, like Murphy, got to 0, 1 below at Franklin, 4 below in Waynesville, Marshall was 2 below, Spindale and Forest City got down to 7, Marion was 6, and Burnsville was 9. It was an extremely cold morning, and of course that slowed things up. Well, we have one more night of cold temperatures. Just about all of our viewing area will be back in the 20s tonight. Once again, do not go out on the roads where everything is thawed up and melted. All of this will ice over. After tonight, things are going to get much better, and we'll talk about that in just a little while. Tammy?
Well, that's definitely what we want to hear.
Yes,
much better. Well, power outages continue to keep thousands of people in the cold and in the dark in the Asheville area. Carolina Power and Light crews have been working around the clock to restore power.
Joining us now by phone is Kevin Butler with CP&L. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Butler.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. How many homes are still without power tonight?
We estimate about 15,000, although those estimates are difficult to come up with just based on customer inquiries about outages.
I understand that you guys are getting a lot of calls from people saying my power is out in particular areas. How are you handling all those calls?
We're working on a continuous basis to sort the calls and the reports of outages, lines down, etc., by area, and then dispatch those each day to crews to assess the possible damages and make the repairs.
Well, Mr. Butler, driving around today, I saw entire trees just uprooted. Their root systems had just come out of the wet ground. Does that continue to cause you problems as these trees strike the lines?
Yes, but in a limited fashion. I think our biggest problem right now is access into remote areas, off the beaten path. We just can't get in to assess the situation and make those repairs.
How about the road conditions? Have you been told what areas will be worked on as far as so that you can get your crews to those neighborhoods?
Yes, we're working in unison with the Buncombe County Emergency Management staff, the City of Asheville, to prioritize street plowings to coincide with the areas that we have the most customers out.
I understand that as far as that priority goes, the clearing is down to maybe some second priority streets, not third priority. Is that causing you problems that so many streets are not plowed?
Yes, we still have a lot of areas that have not been plowed. We're trying to get into the ones that have and do as much as we can in those areas.
How about tonight? Do you guys plan to work? Are you going to take a break? What is the game plan here?
Knowing that this is an extended outage, people just can't work 24 hours a day on an ongoing basis. We work 12 to 15 hours a day, a little bit of rest and food, and we'll be back at it bright and early.
Okay.
Well, good luck to you, and keep your energy up. I know you need it.
Certainly do. Well, Asheville city officials say their emergency shelters will remain open tonight and all stand ready to take in anyone who needs it. Here's the list of those shelters: the East Asheville Community Shelter, the West Asheville Community Shelter, the Reed Center, and the Montfort Community Center. Assistant City Manager Charles Penny says some people are getting their power on and are able to go home, but not that many of them. In Buncombe County, shelters are open tonight at the First Presbyterian Church in Black Mountain. Also, the Skyland Fire Department, the Beaver Dam Fire Department, the Inca Fire Department, and Pisgah Elementary School, as well as Weaverville Primary School, Newfound Church, and at Barnardsville Fire Department. Well, the clouds cleared away today, and that let road crews do their clearing to try to make a dent and make the roads impassable. News 13 Linda Dawson joins us live with a report on road conditions.
Well, Linda, I know you were able to get around a little better to survey things. What did you find out there today?
Well, Mark, we found a little bit of everything. Yes, we were able to get away from our location here at Charlotte Street and I-240 to do some surveying. And what we found was mile to mile, it's a difference between night and day. Welcome to 1923 in northern Buncombe County. Snow is piled high along the roadside, but the road is visible for the first time in days. Road crews and police declared today cleanup day. Warmer temperatures, an end to snow and wind, and fresh resolve paid off on places like Tunnel Road. The police called in private tow trucks to help. At city expense, abandoned vehicles got the heave-ho. Officers say drivers still should stay home.
Snow's beginning to melt, the road crews are getting it scraped off, and we're making headway. We may have some problems about dark tonight. From dark till tomorrow could be another problem time, but right now I'm optimistic.
Some spent the day trying to get back to normal. This driver's car has been buried on I-26 in Henderson County since Saturday. Unearthing or unsnowing it took stamina and patience.
I just had something to dig with. Or about 4 strong guys to give me a push.
But he wasn't alone. The roads are littered with cars and frustrated drivers. Sometimes it means...
A wrecker? I'm going up at Dermot's here now to see if I can get them to come down and get it out.
Further down on I-26, Polk County drivers found the road clear, but still slippery. More of that to come. And depending on what kind of weather we get overnight, I would say there is more of that to come. Now, don't be deceived by the fact that the interstate look pretty good and primary roads like Charlotte Street do look good. Entrance and exit ramps are snow-covered and impassable in places. It takes a big effort to get through those. So sometimes it's tougher to get onto the interstate than anything else you'll face. And again, while the primary streets are cleared, the secondary streets and the side streets are not clear. It is impossible to get out. The biggest problem right now for road crews is people who are joyriding and joy walking. There are people everywhere and they don't need to be out. Now the other thing is that the Highway Patrol requests that you do not call them for road conditions. They prefer that you get them from places like News 13, and we are giving them constantly. Don't call them because they say that's clogging up their lines and keeping them from doing the things they need to do, which is trying to get to stranded motorists and trying to get those places clear. Now while we were able to get around a little better today with the help of Stan Pamphilis and photographer Matt King and with the help of Deborah Potter and photographer Ruben Mayfield, we can tell you we weren't able to get into the western counties, but they are still very bad out towards that way. Now interstates are opening up, but again we had an accident report late this afternoon which pretty much tied up things much longer than it would have been under normal circumstances. Tammy, Mark?
Linda, I know that we've been very fortunate as far as accidents. I mean, I haven't heard of anything like any fatalities or major accidents. I also ran into some people today while I was on the street, and at least they got to shelter. Have folks that have had to abandon their cars, do you know anything about that, whether they're getting shelter?
I know that the Highway Patrol has had to rescue some stranded motorists and get them to places where they would be safe, and I know that along places like I-40 there are people who are still stranded. Luckily, no fatal accidents. No one has died in a traffic accident that we know of at this point, and that's what the Highway Patrol tells us. They say they're going to keep their fingers crossed it stays like that, and again, to help that out, people need to stay off the road.
Linda, we're going to have continuing coverage of our road conditions, but I'll bet things are getting icier just as you speak because the temperatures are dropping now.
That's true, Mark. In fact, since we've been standing here, I've had to put a hat on and gloves. It was very comfortable this afternoon running around, but right now it is getting cold, and I'm afraid it is going to be icy tonight. We'll be here tomorrow morning to tell you how it is.
Okay. All right, time to get warm, Linda. Thank you very much.
Yeah, nice job.
Yes, we're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll visit a mountain town that has a water outage added to its power problems.
And as we go to some of our breaks, we're going to show you some aerial shots of the area under a blanket of snow.
You're watching News 13 at 6 on 13 WLOS TV.
Well, the town of Tryon, Polk County has been without power and water since the storm smashed into western North Carolina. Only today were Duke Power workers able to restore power to critical areas like a nursing home and the town's emergency communication system.
News 13's Deborah Potter made it to Tryon today. She joins us live now from our Greenville newsroom. Deborah, how bad are the conditions in Tryon?
Well, they were much, much worse than I had imagined, Mark. The conditions here in the upstate were bad during the height of the storm, don't get me wrong. But tonight, much of the ice and snow here in the Greenville-Anderson area has melted. The roads are clear for the most part. People who live here probably have no idea how bad it really is just a few miles up the highway across the state line.
Hundreds upon hundreds of trees are down here. Old-timers say they never remembered the weather causing this much damage.
Tryon does not have any electricity, has no water, and very limited phone service.
Emergency dispatchers bypassed their electrical phone system and broke out oil lanterns to handle calls. Only about 50% of the people here have phone service. The whole town is out of water, maybe for 3 more days. These National Guard tankers brought most residents their first water since Saturday. The Guard will truck in 1,600 gallons a day from Kings Mountain until the system is back up. Residents like Cecil Jackson filled up containers as they face the probability of another cold, dark night.
Well, right now I have a fireplace and I keep it burning. I'm also in the woods cutting down wood to keep my fireplace going, and plenty of blankets.
The National Guard helped emergency workers reach about 40 elderly residents whose roads were blocked by trees and ice. Tryon officials hope to restore electricity to the elementary school tonight so they can at least set up a shelter.
Obviously, we have, I guess, about 60% of our population is retiree here, and it makes for a difficult situation for a lot of folks. We have tried to get to everyone who has immediate problems that needs to go to the hospital or have other attention. Most of the problems have been with oxygen and things like that when people lose power, and we're still dealing with those.
Now, we understand that the folks in Tryon did get a shelter set up just a few hours ago. It is at the Tryon Theater on Trade Street. Also, the Tryon Police Department tells us that they have enacted a curfew starting at 8 o'clock tonight that will be in effect through 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. They say if you are out on the street, you will be arrested.
All right. Thank you, Deborah, reporting live from our Greenville News Bureau. Well, in Landrum, South Carolina, which is right across the state line from Tryon, the winter storm has caused problems with the water system. Officials there are advising water customers to boil water for 1 minute before using it for drinking or cooking. For customers without power, treat 1 gallon of water with 1 or 2 drops of Clorox for 30 minutes. Officials advise this precaution because of power outages at the water treatment plant. Well, repair crews from Duke Power have been working to get those power problems in Polk County repaired, as well as outages in Henderson, Rutherford, Transylvania, and Polk County again.
Duke Power reported 22,000 outages this afternoon in western North Carolina, and in the upstate about 1,500 outages. Let's get an update now from Duke Power's Gwen Savage. Gwen?
Yes.
You guys making any progress?
Yes, we have. We currently on our system, which is both North and South Carolina, have worked our way down to 40,000 outages. We still are looking at the greatest concentration in the Blue Ridge area, the Hendersonville, Brevard, Tryon, Rutherfordton, where we still have 22,000 outages. We have made tremendous progress in the Greenville, Spartanburg area. We're down to about 1,500 outages.
I know it must be tough to put an exact time on this, but people are wondering how much longer.
We still are very reluctant. As you can see in the Blue Ridge area, our progress has been very slow. The conditions up there continue to be very difficult for our folks, both traveling and getting power restored, as well as we continue to experience outages as we are restoring. So we seem to be taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So we're very reluctant to pin a time on when we will have those folks restored to service.
Well, sooner the better, obviously.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us, Ms. Savage.
Thank you.
The Nantahala Power and Light Company tonight reports about half of its 51,000 customers are still without power. A spokesman for the company says a significant number of customers will be without service through Wednesday. NP&L serves 5 counties in far northwestern North Carolina. Work crews say trees on lines and slick roads are hampering their efforts to restore electricity. But help is on the way. Duke Power is sending crews tonight to provide additional support.
Well, if you're one of the thousands of people who've been without power, you may have questions about the safety of food in your refrigerator or freezer. A foods and nutrition agent gave us some tips for food safety following a power outage. If the meat, poultry, or fish in your freezer thawed completely, you should not refreeze it. If it's still cold to the touch, you need to cook it immediately. Meat, poultry, or fish can be refrozen if ice crystals remain on the food or if the food was stored below 40 degrees while the power was off. Now, if your meat, poultry, or fish was above 40 degrees for more than 2 hours, throw it away. It can cause foodborne illnesses. If you have any questions about the safety of any food following a power outage, call the USDA Meat and Poultry Hotline at 1-800-535-4555 between 10 and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Well, I know you can stick it outside and it'll certainly stay cold.
It's cold outside.
Yeah,
It'll be very cold tonight.
Well, it's going to be not as bad as last night. We won't be down on the teens and single digits, but it'll be in the 20s. So we'll see a lot of what we call black ice, and that's dangerous, the roads where they've thawed out. Also, we have rain on the way, which will help, I think, melt off some of this snow, unless we get too much of it. Then we're going to get into
double trouble,
just
right? Here we go.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. When we come back, though, we'll talk about what is ahead for the next 24 hours. And then the 5-day forecast shows us a chance of rain again about Thursday or Friday. But notice the big news here is temperatures each day are going to be warming up. And as I said, we may even see 60s by Sunday.
You know, I actually got to work today part of the way on my skis.
I heard that, yeah.
And that was how extreme it is up where I live, above 3,000 feet. But I have to say, as much as I like snow, this is one of those be careful what you wish for things. I know Tammy was interested to see North Carolina
I was begging for it, but nothing like this.
You've seen one now.
You got to remember, we have been in a snow drought for 3 or 4 years, and people love snow. I don't care what they say, they love snow. We just don't like blizzards, and that's what we had.
What about the runoff when all this melts?
Well, that's the dangerous thing. We're going to get some rain over the next couple of days. If we get a little rain, it'll help melt it down. If we get too much rain, we could get into a flooding situation. I don't want to see that.
We're not out of the woods.
Yeah, and another thing, I actually got to get out and get away from the station and see what's going on. And for those who have been homebound, I don't think they really, even with the footage we've shown, have a clue as to how bad this really is.
Just off of Charlotte Street, it looks like a hurricane on some of those places. Unbelievable, it really is.
I went to Homestead, Florida, had a chance to do that where Hurricane Andrew hit, and the devastation is a lot like it. I mean, not comparison as to buildings, but but the trees down, the power out, and everything.
To see things so drastically change.
That's right.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
As we go to the break, we have some more of those spectacular aerial views of all that snow.
Well, the same storm that hammered the mountains with high winds and snow also pounded the Carolina coast.
Yes, and the Outer Banks residents are calling it the fiercest storm they've ever seen. Joining us live now from Nags Head is reporter Dave Bullock with the latest. Dave, how is it down there?
Well, Mark, it was so nice today here at Nags Head that you would never know the beating these islands took over the weekend. You know, between Hatteras Island and the mainland, there's about 30 or 40 miles of water. It's the Pamlico Sound. But the storm this weekend seemed determined to push that entire sound all the way across those barrier islands. It was like nothing residents of Hatteras Island can remember seeing. A storm blowing off the Sound with the fury of the ocean. Today, Hatteras Island is a mess. When the Sound washed over, it tossed campers and cars like so many matchbook toys. Scores were ruined, and it was easy to find boats where boats should not have been found. Miss Virginia O'Neill, Rodanthi's postmaster, was working out of a mobile station today. The post office burned in a matter of minutes when 6 feet of water rolled through the building, setting off an electrical fire that firemen couldn't reach to try to put out.
Oh, it was just like a little ocean up through here. Just the waves were just tremendous. I'd never seen nothing like it.
Rescuers plucked 4 men who had been trapped inside the Oregon Inlet Marina as the waves crashed against the building, and boat owners struggled to tie down their boats as the furious water caused the boats to buck. But when it was over, 3 of the big fishing boats had been hulled and were sunk. Mike Clarkin said despite the way it looks, his boat, the Fishing Frenzy, will be repaired.
And we'll go after it like ants, crawl all over it with carpenters and wood and paint, glue, and we'll fix it and she'll sail again.
Roanoke Island narrowly missed being cut off when the end of the Umstead Bridge washed out.
It's probably big enough to put a car or two in it. And when we found it, we closed the road, and in the process, the pavement did fall in.
Crews worked on the bridge all weekend, and now they have one lane open. The bridge is expected to be open in both directions by Wednesday. Now, in a scary flashback to Halloween 1990, a barge broke loose from its moorings and rammed into the Oregon Inlet Bridge. When that happened 2 years ago, a section of the bridge collapsed. When it happened this weekend, the barge hit the bridge and bounced off. Mark, Tammy?
They built that strong, but we have seen Mother Nature's fury from the mountains to the sea.
Yes, we certainly have.
Incredible.
When we come back, News 13's Cheryl Barber joins us live with an update on the search for those missing hikers in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Earlier, we told you about the rescue effort to find missing hikers trapped by the snow in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. That search continues at this hour.
News 13's Cheryl Barber has just returned from the Park Service's Rescue Operations Center near Cherokee. He joins us live in our newsroom. And Cheryl, we understand most of these hikers are teenagers from private schools in Tennessee and Michigan. How could they have survived such an incredible blizzard?
Well, park rangers tell me that these kids and their adult leaders were incredibly smart. They stayed calm, they stayed put, they did everything that they should do, they just stayed warm and dry, and that was the key in this blizzard. The search began shortly after that blizzard began, when families began worrying that their kids weren't coming out of the woods on schedule. Photographer Lee Colson and I watched some tearful reunions and watched medics bandage frostbitten feet. National Guard helicopters delivered cold, weary, but happy groups of teenaged hikers to the Smokemont Ranger Station near Cherokee this afternoon. Most told us they felt lucky to be alive. Some of the hikers in this group from a private school in St. Andrews, Tennessee, suffered minor frostbite, but they survived to tell an incredible story about a blinding blizzard that froze their march out of the Smokies' rugged wilderness.
We tried to bag that peak, and we couldn't, so we couldn't find the trail once we got to the top, so we had to turn around and come back.
The amount of snow was just pretty much overwhelming, and the temperature dropping so dramatically from the last several days, where it took a lot of people by surprise.
The wind was blowing really bad. It was hard to see, so we were staying together, pretty much as we came back down.
And that was probably the worst night. For me, that was probably the scariest. The temperature was very cold. We were very tired because we had hiked a total of about 5 miles. And going through the snow, it's very difficult to do.
But they survived, keeping each other warm, 3 to a tent, sharing what food and drink they had left, and all the encouragement they could muster.
I was more worried about other people and pushing them forward than myself, so I didn't feel like I was going to lose it, but I really felt like some of the people in our party were going to lose it. But, we didn't, so I think we worked out all right.
It never ceases to amaze me how teenagers can really pull through in a crisis.
What an incredible story. Fortunately for that group, all 9 who went in made it out alive. They all survived. Rescue workers continue to search for at least 3 groups of hikers with 8 or 9 people per group from that Michigan school that we mentioned earlier. The Park Service has teamed up with the National Guard helicopter pilots to conduct the search in the Hazel Creek and Forney Creek sections. That is in deep ravines above the Fontana Lake. And if you know that area, that's one of the most incredibly rugged areas of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
And the cold there will be fierce tonight, Cheryl. What are their chances of surviving tonight?
Well, if these kids are practicing the hiking the hiking measures and the precaution measures that the other groups have practiced and have shown their ability to survive, it looks like they have a pretty good chance because our temperatures are going up. They're nowhere near they were a couple of nights ago, and they think that these kids, if they're wise enough, will make it through this night and probably will be found tomorrow. There are ground crews on the ground tonight searching those valleys, but this is extremely rugged territory. There's no telling where those kids are if they can't be seen from the air.
They've got to keep their heads.
That's right.
Certainly. What about supplies for those kids? Do they have any idea as to what they have with them?
Most of these kids, we are told, were going in for about a week's hike, and this is a loop that is not really that unusual to take this time of year. Now, you'll have to recall that when they started this hike, it was like temperatures in the 40s and 50s at night maybe, and maybe up in the 60s on some of the higher ridges during the day. But these kids went in prepared. They had multiple layers of clothing. They had strong, sturdy tents, and it looked like as they were in the woods that they could handle this. And so there's every reason to believe that this group of kids will be able to handle it.
We certainly hope so.
Yes, good luck to them. Well, talking about supplies, grocery stores were about the only stores open today, and some of them couldn't open because of power failure or employees couldn't get in. Those stores that did open soon had empty bread and milk shelves. Bakeries plan to deliver tomorrow morning, though some milk has been delivered in four-wheel drive vehicles late this afternoon. The U.S. Postal Service has not run its mail truck since Saturday, but plans to deliver mail to post offices tomorrow.
Coming up next on News 13, we'll put you in the co-pilot seat for some more breathtaking aerial views of the snow in our area.
Well, the blizzard of the century has left entire communities snowbound. Most people can see what the storm has done to them, but they've been left wondering about its effect on the outside world. That's why during this newscast we've been showing you aerial pictures of the aftermath of the winter blizzard.
But News 13 photographer Mark Taylor got a snowbird's view. He flew in a private plane from Greenville to Old Fort Mountain to Canton and back today to survey the area. He joins us live now in our Greenville newsroom. And Mark, how visible was the damage from the air?
Well, Mark and Tammy, it was very visible. Actually, I was quite surprised by just how much I could see. The first impression I got from the air is how beautiful the mountains are, covered in snow. Then I began to realize that many people are cut off from the rest of the world. No heat, no electricity, and sub-freezing temperatures. The beauty quickly faded to disaster. As we made our way up Interstate 26, we found truck after truck jackknifed and stranded. Many people had just given up altogether and abandoned their cars in search of shelter. No flights were leaving from the Asheville Regional Airport as the runway had not been completely cleared. On Patton Avenue in downtown Asheville, it was obvious how slow the movement was. The Smoky Park Bridge still covered in packed snow and ice. From the air, downtown Asheville appeared all but deserted, streets with little or no movement on them. Homes on Bowcatcher and Town Mountain seemed impossible to reach, paralyzed in a winter blanket. From Asheville east, Interstate 40 continued to be littered along the side with 18-wheelers. On top of Old Fort Mountain in McDowell County, it was apparent to see how dangerous trying to drive up this steep mountain was during a blizzard. It made me glad I was in an airplane. The frustration of those caught during the storm was obvious, as cars and trucks jammed an exit ramp, trying to make their way to a truck stop off I-40 near Candler. Mark and Tammy, it was one of the most incredible sights I had ever seen, being up in the air. It just goes to show just how deceiving being in the air can be when you realize there's a foot or 2 feet of snow on the ground.
Mark, that was a rare view because, again, no one can see much around them.
Right.
They can't get a few blocks and you flew over the whole area. That's an incredible shot of the whole devastation of this storm.
A wonderful journey.
Yeah. You said it was beautiful, but that faded quickly. Where did you see areas in your assessment that looked like they were going to be the hardest hit, the longest to thaw out, the deepest depth of the snow?
Well, the biggest part of I-40 between I-26 and the I-240 east exit on I-40 seemed to be the worst. That's where I saw most of the jackknife trucks, and heading more toward Old Fort Mountain seemed to be the worst area. All in all, around Asheville, it's going to be tough to dig out, but once you got out on the interstate, it seemed to be pretty clear. The only problem is getting to or from the interstate is virtually impossible right now.
All right.
Okay, thanks so much, Mark.
What a journey. Thank you, Mark.
Yes, it was.
Now to day 4, Tuesday, March 16th. At this point, most people had their power turned back on, and slowly but surely, life was returning to normal.
The big story that day was the ongoing rescue of the kids from Michigan. They had been hiking in the Great Smokies when the blizzard struck. Here's some of the coverage from our 6 o'clock newscast.
This is News 13 at 6 with the latest local news, weather, and sports.
Good evening, everyone. Darcel is ill tonight. Park rangers have found and rescued the remaining 24 teenagers and their adult leaders who were stranded in a blizzard in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park for the past 4 days. Those rescued today were part of a larger group of students and teachers from a private school near Detroit. News 13's Cheryl Barber was there to watch the reunion of 8 of those hikers as they rejoined friends. Cheryl joins us live via Newsat 13 at the Oconaluftee Visitor Center with the latest. Cheryl?
This parking lot was the scene of a huge celebration as the last group of hikers missing from that Michigan group were brought in. Now, helicopter pilots who had been scanning the entire area spotted 2 groups in the rugged Hazel Creek area that's north of Lake Fontana or Fontana Lake. When they dropped information to these people as to whether they wanted to be rescued, the hikers responded yes, joyfully so. And later this afternoon, they hoisted them out of the wilderness. Medevac helicopters descended into the Oconaluftee Visitor Center as heavy clouds descended onto the Smoky Mountains Park. As the hikers piled out of the choppers, cheers of joy from their friends meant their snowbound ordeal was over. Once inside, park rangers gave the exhausted hikers food and drink, and the tearful reunion continued. Later, one of the hikers said she never lost faith in her ability to survive.
I had all the confidence in the world that they would get us out, and it got a little scary at times, but we made it.
Now, the hikers told helicopter pilots that they had survived by building something of a igloo. They had built a snow wall in a circular design and then put tarps over it. And that's the way they kept their body heat in as they weathered the most severe blizzard this area has seen in a long, long time. They used their good sense to stay alive.
Very resourceful. But Cheryl, as we know, the Smokies is the most visited park in the United States. Are the rangers worried that there are other individual hikers still out there lost by the blizzard?
Yes, there are those concerns tonight, Mark, and those people who are informing other park rangers that there's the possibility of other hikers have come here to what amounts to a ranger station here and an operations center to look for those people. We understand there are ground crews now looking for about 18 people. Those people may be scattered throughout the park. They know that they are possibly in here because they find cars parked along Highway 441 and other parts of the park, and so they have the suspicion, of course, that they're out there.
Getting back to this group, Cheryl, this has been an asked question. Why were these people in the park? Did they have, when they possibly might have known that there was such severe weather on the way, did they have any inkling that they would run into this kind of problem in the Smokies in March?
Some of the hikers that I have talked to told me that they had no clue about the weather, primarily because they started a week before the storm hit.
Well, earlier today, 16 other members of the group were taken to Knoxville. They joined fellow students who had been rescued yesterday. It was a tearful reunion for the hikers who braved blizzard conditions. One student said she just wanted to call home and talk to her mother.
I'm scared, Mom. I'm okay now. Yes. One of them name was Megan. I miss you so much.
The survival-trained hikers were part of a group on the school's annual wilderness outing. Well, despite the elation in the Smokies today, the blizzard has taken a grim toll. Emergency officials tell us the storm is responsible for the deaths of at least 7 people in North Carolina. Officials have not released the names of the victims or the exact cause of death. Well, one more open for business sign went up today in the Carolinas, and that's good news for travelers. The Asheville Regional Airport is open for the first time since the storm. News 13's Linda Dawson found people eager to take off and others happy to arrive finally.
Luggage nearby, tickets clutched in hands, hope on their faces. Welcome to the Asheville Regional Airport. The ticket counters are open again after the blizzard of '93 closed the airport. Now workers face an avalanche of people, many with stories of being stranded in western North Carolina.
It was an experience. The wind, we're used to the wind and the snow, but the aftermath was not what we're used to. We're used to being able to dig out the next day and get on with our lives.
Others face the same problem trying to get back home.
We were coming home from Aspen, Colorado, Friday afternoon. Expected to leave Saturday morning at 7 o'clock. Got in line and they said, surprise, Atlanta is closed. Take a hotel room and we'll see you Monday morning.
Some have become experts about the waiting game, even when the way out is close by. The roar of these engines is music to their ears. Linda Dawson, News 13.
Well, many travelers making connections will have an easy time. Almost all other airports affected by the storm have reopened, so they don't have any major delays ahead. Well, the major highways in our area are improving tonight, but hazardous areas do remain. The westbound lane of I-40 in West Asheville is blocked at this hour by 2 tractor trailers that jackknifed after hitting patches of snow on the highway. Police are having problems locating wreckers to pull the trucks out of the roadway. Interstate 26 has 1 lane open in each direction, but there are still some hazardous sections. Well, the burden of the heavy snowfall has been too much to bear for many rooftops in the Carolinas. Snow forced this roof to collapse on the Revco drugstore in Weaverville's Woodland Hills Plaza. As a precaution, building inspectors have shut down the neighboring businesses in the plaza. That's a problem because one is an Ingles supermarket, and it was one of the only grocery stores open for business in the Weaverville area. Tens of thousands of people in our area are still without electricity tonight. Carolina Power and Light officials say about 10,000 customers are still without power. Nantahala Power and Light reports about 18,000 to 20,000 customers don't have power. And Duke Power says more than 16,000 customers are without electricity in western North Carolina, about 600 in the upstate. French Broad Electric says all of its customers in Yancey and Mitchell counties are back online tonight. News 13's Maggie Lauderer was in a North Buncombe neighborhood of 20 families this afternoon when the lights went on for the first time in 4 days.
It's a neighborhood that's a great place to live and raise kids, but when there's no water, no electricity, and no way out, it's been a challenge. But today at about the same time, the tractor came to plow the roads and the lights came on. During the last 4 days, however, it was neighbor looking out for neighbor.
About 24 hours into the ordeal, people started calling each other, and we started sharing food, we started sharing wood.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right.
For the man's survival was sleeping near the wood stove and playing endless rounds of a game called Trouble. But these families without power and water skirted trouble by finding resourceful ways to cope, like the workman family's refrigerator on the picnic table, and a water source designated for toilet flushing. The workmen's put a green tab in the window for each of their snowbound days and kept an endless game of Monopoly going. But today they felt like they were living on Broadway when the power came back.
I told my girls that I was not going to shave until after the power came back on, so
today's the day?
Today is the day.
Now that the power is back on in the neighborhood and the refrigerators are purring again, and the televisions and water heaters and dishwashers are working, things will get back to normal. But neighbors say these are 4 days that they'll talk about for a long time. Maggie Lauderer, News 13.
Well, here's how frustrating it can be when you don't have power. Just a short distance from the neighborhood Maggie visited, she found another area where their electricity still had not been restored. Well, it could be another week before people in Tryon have electricity again. The storm caused so much damage to the Duke power system that more than 2/3 of the town still has no power. But as News 13's Deborah Potter tells us, the good news is that people in Tryon may have water in 2 days.
Duke Power workers are trying to restore electricity to Tryon's water plant by the end of the day. That would allow the town to treat water tomorrow and start filling the pipes by Thursday. In the meantime, residents are keeping the National Guard busy. Members have refilled these 400-gallon tanks several times since yesterday. Town officials say the power situation here won't be as easy to resolve.
Anywhere you go, there's no power. There's trees down and they've been cut so you can pass an automobile, but you run over utility lines. I'll be lucky to get power at my house in a week.
The way the trees are destroyed in this area, you'd think a tornado came through here instead of a snowstorm. The trees are twisted and snapped off in midair, splintered like toothpicks.
The earth shook and moved.
Sylvia Dodge and others are busy cutting those trees off their homes. Dodge has no power, water, or phone, but she's more worried about her neighbors.
We have very elderly relatives and lots of other people do too who are sick and hurting, and it's, you know, it's hard.
Tryon has set up a shelter at the town theater for people who are hurting. Only 4 people slept here last night, but owners are expecting a bigger crowd tonight. They say not only is word of the shelter spreading, tonight will make the 4th cold night people here have been without heat. Deborah Potter, News 13, Tryon.
Now, once again, a curfew is in effect tonight in Tryon. Police warn people to stay off the streets from 8 p.m. until 8 in the morning. Police say they will arrest violators. In Rutherford County today, dispatchers had to send a deputy to protect a Duke Power crew. The sheriff said people upset over the outages were harassing Duke workers. Well, other than the power outages, Rutherford County officials say the recovery from the blizzard of '93 is going well. On Main Street in Rutherfordton, snow still covers the parking places. Business owners along the street are repairing damage from the snow. They are also counting their blessings.
We thought we were very lucky that none of the plate glass was broken. Very lucky.
Yeah.
Road crews in Rutherford County are also busy cutting down trees that fell during the storm. Ken Bob. Well, you can also measure the impact of the blizzard of '93 by looking at the damage it caused. The worst we've seen so far is at a huge greenhouse complex in Henderson County. News 13's Cheryl Barber says the snow did $5 million worth of damage there.
Workers at Van Wingerden International began the agonizing work of hacking apart 6 acres of crushed greenhouses. Saturday morning, as the blizzard intensified, they tried to save the buildings as the snow deepened. Around noon, the buildings began twisting under the weight, and the workers dashed to an exit.
And all the air that's under the greenhouse had to go out through the same hole that we were running through, so we were with the 3 of us. We were sort of lifted up and blown out of the greenhouse.
Luckily, no one was seriously injured, but the company lost 1 million violets and other plants in the disaster. Millions of chrysanthemums survived and are ready for shipment. This is the second disaster to strike Van Wingerden in 7 months. A fire leveled the shipping facility here in August.
That first one was covered by insurance. Here we don't have a dime of insurance, so that's the big difference in this case.
Art Van Wingerden hopes President Clinton will help him rebuild through federal disaster loans.
We once were offered money from in a disaster what we had with a big flood, where we lost everything too, and then I said, no, I don't want it. We can pull up our own pants. But at this time I say, please help us.
Despite the $5 million loss, Van Wingerden officials say that they'll continue production here. They've already begun plans to rebuild the facility, whether or not they get federal help. Cheryl Barber, News 13, Henderson County.
Van Wingerden employs 250 workers, but the company plans no layoffs. Now here's a look at some of the other storm damage. Snow on the roof of the Lamp Factory outlet store in Canton caused the roof to collapse Sunday. It wiped out thousands of dollars worth of merchandise. No one was inside. Workers began the re-roofing chores Monday, and the owner hopes to be able to reopen Friday. At the Innsbruck Mall in Asheville, the heavy snow caused the roof over Brendel's to collapse Monday. 3 people were inside when the roof caved in. They all got out safely. Brendel's officials do not know when they will be able to reopen. Well, after the blizzard hit Saturday, 100,000 homes were left without electricity. Today, News 13's Maggie Lauderer found families who still don't have power. She says they are coping, but just barely.
Those power lines that run through our neighborhoods carry the source that makes us warm, gives us hot meals, and can make us miserable when they're down. Like in this neighborhood in South Asheville, which hasn't had power since last Saturday. So the sight of this truck was a sweet sight to families like the Kimbleys, who had coped until this morning when their second-hand borrowed kerosene heater covered them with greasy soot, still evident on little Christopher's face. And what will they do now?
Well, the neighbor brought us a little Coleman heater, so we're just going to have to survive the best we can. Just stay in the bed. And hopefully not for 4 more days.
Across town in Haw Creek, crews like this one have been working 16 hours a day to restore power. Some of these men just came in from Haywood County to get Buncombe back in line, making Max Cox a happy man.
You take it for granted, don't you? Yeah. I am so glad that I've had this experience, because hopefully next time I'll be, better prepared for it.
Yesterday morning, CP&L estimated they had 10,000 to 13,000 customers still without electricity. That number's jumped down to 3,000 today, minus about 35 families in this area, which will again have electricity when those wires are reconnected in a few minutes. And for these people, they say it's not a moment too soon.
4 days, and it starts getting cold.
Maggie Lauderer, News 13, Buncombe County.
By the way, the Kimberleys in South Asheville just called to tell us they'd gotten their power back for several hours this afternoon, but just lost the power again. On a brighter note, Maggie got her power back just about an hour ago.
And there you have it. Highlights of News 13's coverage of the storm of the century. We hope you share this tape with your relatives and friends.
Our thanks to everyone who helped provide News 13 with information during this crisis. Many of our viewers have told us we were an important link to the outside world while they were trapped in their homes. We're about to show you the names of the people here at 13 WLOS who played a part in bringing you that coverage.
Thanks for watching.